is to promote discussion. I think that we need to have a clear vision of what this new future needs to look like so that we can then figure out how to get there.
Near Future is a collection of short science fiction stories. In it, I try to lace the ideals, cultural and technical, that need to be implemented. I not only wanted to entertain, but also give the reader a practical view of this new future. My objective is to promote discussion.
Two of the places that I started out are in the public schools. I think we need more public utilities. The first thing is critical thinking. We need critical thinking in public schools and marketing. We encounter marketing more than we do English and math. We're bombarded by it. We're constantly having people trying to manipulate us in ways that further their own agendas instead of what is good for us. We need to be able to identify our options. We need to be able to then make decisions rather than just following the loudest voice.
And then what happens when they graduate from those schools and they're about to vote?
Yes, we will then have this group of kids that are just raring to go, and they are not going to be so easily fooled. They're going to have a clear idea, and they're able to see through the crap, because these marketing tactics are the same ones that the politicians use. I want them to start out maybe being able to look at commercials and tell you what's being sold and what the tricks are that are being used to sell that product. And then they also need to be looking at high-tech things like using your face for a password. A lot of people don't talk about that or think about it. But when you use your face for a password, you are now putting your face, you're connecting it to all of your personal data. And whether a person, whether the company that starts that intends it to happen or not, now you're subject to somebody scanning you and knowing all your stuff. You know, I mean,
That's
I
crazy.
can see a day when, you know, policemen or bounty hunters will be standing on corners just scanning people until they find somebody with a warrant. I mean, you know, these are the kinds of things that would happen once we get into a society where you can scan a person's face and know everything about them. You got to think about this stuff before you start using that handy app that doesn't make you have to memorize a password. But that's just another example. Now, the other thing I'd like to do in public schools is I'd like to start out a citizen scientist program. Again, I want it to be a public utility. And what I'd like to see is you have so many children and adults now. You've got 3 generations of people that are not used to being outside. They've been inside under climate-controlled, sterile environment. And they're not used to being outside. It's a foreign place to them. If we had an environmental science classes that took the kids outside, brought them closer to nature, brought them closer to this natural world that we need to preserve, then that would be good for them, but also they could be collecting data. I can see them collecting soil sample with their teachers, you know, outside, and then that could be inputted into a public utility. Then you would be able to spot new pollutants, new invasive species. Maybe it would also help you with climate change and knowing what to do. I mean, if you can imagine, there would be a public utility that anybody could access and create apps for, so that they could take that information in this public data that could then help us combat things like climate change.
Your story illustrates a lot of fascinating concepts regarding a non-dystopian future. One of them is renewable energy. Can you share some thoughts on renewable energy?
Okay.
In addition to the obvious reasons that we need to convert to renewable energy and away from fossil fuels, here are a few other reasons.
Well, for one thing, I think that it's very important for us to become energy independent. Now, not only are there foreign hostile countries like Russia that can already disrupt our electrical grid, and they can do that right now, we also have climate change catastrophes happening regularly that also can disrupt our electrical grid. So anything that is connected to the internet is vulnerable. Now, if we decentralize that, if we have our own electrical grids, that will help us to weather any kind of a storm or climate change storms, hurricanes and things that are taking out the grid. That would help you to survive that and to do well by that. Can you imagine too if all you had to do was pay property taxes, maybe your water bill? I mean, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Do you think all the changes need to be physical, or are there cultural changes we can make as well?
Yes, lots of cultural changes. Our current disposable lifestyle is not sustainable. And plastics are causing havoc on our environment and our bodies. It is causing our waterways to be sterile because it is also sterilizing humans. I mean, you're getting more and more people that have problems reproducing by themselves, and a lot of it has to do with the chemicals that we're taking in through plastics. I think something like a tax on new plastics. Somehow we need to make renewable, recyclable plastics more valuable. If taxes were put on the new plastics, can you imagine, then people would be out, instead of scrapping for metals, maybe they would also be scrapping for plastics. Maybe it would be wonderful if there was a day when it was feasible for people to go out and harvest plastic out of the ocean because they could then resell it or use it. That would be great. Lawn mowing. We don't need to. Why are we mowing our lawns? That's a big thing. We're also hurting the wildlife. There's a lot of very wasteful things that we do that are really not necessary. We do it because of a peer pressure. We need to maybe have more urban gardening or gardening in general. I think that would be a great subject for schools too to teach if they don't already. Disposable is not futuristic, and we got to get that idea out of our minds. We keep thinking that we want the newest, latest technology. What we really need to do is we need to see if that is something that we need. I mean, when a new technology comes out, we need to take a look at it, take a good look at it, see if it's worth the money that we would be spending. See if it's an upgrade from what we've had that's worth the amount of time that we spend working to get it. We're buying a lot of stuff not because we need it, but because we're told we're supposed to, and we need to stop and examine that. We need to decide rather than following the loudest voice. The greed is good mantra is also very damaging. It's causing us to work against each other instead of with each other. Corporations like it because that makes us buy more and become more competitive. But what we really need to do is work as a community. It's much more difficult to defeat a community than it is the individuals that they're trying to separate us into. Extended families living together. I think that's a great idea. I mean, once you turn 18, you're supposed to make your own household, buy all new stuff, have 2 sets of stuff, live there by yourself. The other problem that we're doing is we're isolating each other. We're being alone too much, and this is causing a lot of emotional problems because we are, like I say, being alone together. I mean, even when we are not alone, we're in a room, we're looking at a phone or something. We are alone together.
What have we lost?
Freedom of movement is one of the things that we've lost too. This is something that really makes me sad because I see all of these, even sometimes small children, that cannot run and walk and fall down and get back up and run some more. And there's a lot of people that are in that boat, and they're young people even. And that we're selling our freedom of movement to these corporations have weaponized sugarcane into an addictive drug, and we're also addicted to highly processed foods that have absolutely no nutritional value. And it's really causing havoc with our health and our ability to enjoy our life. And we're selling it out to these corporations. We have become addicts. The technology can also help us to live the life we want to. We should use the technology that is most useful for us. I mean, Wi-Fi should be a public utility. You should be able to work out of your home if you want, spend more time with your children, and be able to live wherever you want. You could probably live in a cabin in the woods somewhere and be a hunter if you wanted to. That could be your lifestyle decision because you could use the utilities to see, well, if you're a hunter, where the wildlife is, how you could maintain this wildlife. I mean, we could keep track of so many things. We could be the guardians of the planet instead of just the termite people that ruin it. We can't just say that the nature is going to take care of it because we've screwed it up so bad that it's going to take a while for nature to be able to smooth all the bumps out. But say if you were a hunter and maybe you had a way of flash freezing the meat, and you could separate it, send the fur to one place and the meat to another, and then the public utility could then, maybe wild game could become a new delicacy. People might start liking it, and you could start sending it directly to those people through this public utility. I mean,
And so you're in essence saying we have to uncouple ourselves from our corporate overlords.
yes, we do. We very much need to. We need to analyze and think for ourselves instead of just accepting what everyone else does or what they say you're supposed to do. They say everyone else does. Those are not reasons to do or not to do anything. Those are excuses that people use not to think about the question. Keep in mind that the world is crashing and burning at the same rate for you as it is for the rest of us. And like it or not, we are all in this together. And if you believe any differently, then you are delusional, because we all have the same address.